My father, the Padishah Emperor, was 72, yet looked no more than 35, the year he encompassed the death of Duke Leto and gave Arrakis back to the Harkonnens. He seldom appeared in public wearing other than a Sardaukar uniform and a Burseg's black helmet with the Imperial Lion in gold upon its crest. The uniform was an open reminder of where his power lay. He was not always that blatant, though. When he wanted, he can radiate charm and sincerity. But I often wonder in these later days if anything about him was as it seemed. I think now he was a man fighting constantly to escape the bars of an invisible cage. You must remember that he was an emperor, father head of a dynasty that reached back into the dimmest history, but we denied him a legal son. Was this not the most terrible defeat a ruler ever suffered? My mother obeyed her sister's superiors, where the Lady Jessica disobeyed. Which of them was stronger? History already has answered. From In My Father's House by the Princess Irulan. Welcome to Reading Dune, a podcast where we read Dune by Frank Herbert and talk about it. If you're a Fremen or a first-time reader, this podcast is for you. My name is Caleb Pauls.
And I'm Evan Diaz.
And together, we are going to read some Dune.
Yeah, we are.
Hey, Evan. How you doing today?
Pretty good.
We are currently recording from Evan's closet.
Yeah.
This is the closest we've ever been together recording. Like, I can touch you. If you're watching live, you totally saw that on YouTube. If not, it's weird anyway. All right. So, like we do like to start most of our episodes, we want to hear from you guys.
Yes.
The readers of Dune. We ask y'all to send your favorite moments in Dune to us via the internet, because that's how else do we do anything. You can send us audio or video of you saying your favorite moments. You can write an email to readingdune@gmail.com. And I want to read an email from Axley. He's from the Gold Coast of Australia.
What?
Shout out Australia. He says, "Good day, fellow Fremen and first-time reader." I'm sorry if I'm butchering your accent.
Don't do the
Alex.
accent.
Yeah,
Don't do the
I'm
accent.
sorry. We said good day right at the beginning. Couldn't help myself. Okay. Just wanted to start off by saying that I love the podcast as a whole, but also it gives me something to look forward to on my travel to uni every week.
Nice.
Understand that. Coincidentally enough, my favorite moment in the entire Dune novel was the end of chapter 25, which that was the chapter where Paul, it was the end of book 1, where Paul had his trip and his experience.
Yeah.
He saw everything. He's like freaking out in the tent.
Right.
He says, you know what part I'm talking about. Goosebumps every time. My father read Dune when he was 20, and he passed it down to me. Now is that I am 20. I've read Dune once, so technically this is my second time around. Thank you guys. I'm picking up so much information that I missed. The dynamic you guys have face-to-face is much better than when you're streaming. You guys should do that more often.
We will do our best.
We will do our best. Stay well, and make sure you visit the Gold Coast after these dire times.
Ooh.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much.
That's the first time anyone's invited me to Australia, so good eye, Alex.
Hey! Now we have an excuse to go. We gotta go see Alex and our Reading Dune people there.
Yeah.
All right, so, Evan, last time... Wait, no, the quote.
The quote. Okay.
Super long.
It was long. It was a long one. We were debating before we started if there was a longer one. I remember there being one that was like super long, but I don't remember where, so I can't prove my theory. But yes, it was very long.
I think that the long one was also In My Father's House by Princess Irulan.
Right. Yeah.
So whenever she's talking about her past, she just decides to go on and on and on.
It just goes off.
Which is kind of cool, because that's the only thing we know about what's happening in the Imperium from her records.
Right. And she's obviously got some daddy issues. So,
yes. So, first of all, right off the bat, the Emperor was 72, but he looked 35.
That's pretty tight.
That's the effects of spice right there.
Oh, okay.
The geriatric spice.
That does it for you?
Yeah. So that's people live a lot longer once they have some spice.
Interesting. I didn't
like age slower.
Had we been told that before?
Like probably the second chapter with guys hum the hum.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that yes, the spice prolongs life.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense that you would be talking about
that. Also, that the Emperor wears his Sardaukar uniform everywhere.
Right. That was interesting. I had always pictured him in like big robes or something, but he's a soldier.
Yeah, he wants to show everyone where his power lies.
Cool.
But even though he's like all powerful in this universe, he still feels like he's caged.
Right.
He feels like he's caged because he has everything, but he can't have an heir.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, he's stuck to the limitations of his absolute power. Wow, that was deep. That was really deep. I'm really poetic and awesome. Like he has to abide by all of the rules because he's the emperor. He's the one at the tippity top.
Who's holding him hostage? Which group? Like, why can't he have a son?
The Bene Gesserit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Bene Gesserit hold him captive. Dang. So he can be on top, but he can only move. He can't move outside what they say.
Right. So
it really kind of in this universe.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah, and then Princess Irulan even says like the Bene Gesserit have this whole system in place, but who is stronger? All of those sisters in the system, or Lady Jessica and her one act of rebellion?
Right. Man, that just expanded with your explanation. That's pretty rad. That's a lot.
Yes, and history's already answered who is the stronger. We know it's Lady Jessica.
She's like hella strong.
She's really cool. All right. So last time on reading Dune, what happened? Where were
we? Stilgar. We were entering the cave with Stilgar. Well, we walked through a crevasse with the Fremen of Sietch Tabr, and we went into a hole that ended up being a dope cave. And Stilgar requested a sign from the Lady Jessica, and she just like let go of her control and spouted out this prayer verse thing.
A children's prayer, evidently.
Right. And they all kind of like flipped out, were like really into it. And Stilgar was like, Sayadina, you are our Reverend Mother. And
well, they're not quite a Reverend Mother yet. She's definitely Sayadina. Yeah, she got some power now.
And I think that's basically where it ended. Paul ate a little snack full of spice and started tripping out again.
Yeah.
But this time he had a little more control over it. Thinking about it now, it's like that first time was like the first time you get on a surfboard.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, I know what this is. But then he tries to stand up on it and just falls and gets tumbled around by the waves and gets all messed up.
Yeah.
Second time, he's like, okay, last time I didn't do X, Y, and Z. So he stood up on the board for a second before he fell down this time around.
I think it's a good analogy. Yeah, he's learning it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it a lot. Like the first time he tripped, he could see all these different futures and all these different things. It was all like kind of taking him on a ride. Mm-hmm. And he almost looked too hard into it. He like got stuck staring.
Yeah.
And saw these atrocious things happening. But now in this time, he was starting to understand that if I look at it too long, it's almost like it doesn't exist. Yeah. Like the only way to see that its time is there stopping is to like look at it. But if you look at it too long, you're going to change it. So you got almost kind of like find almost the things you don't see.
Wow.
So even Paul in this chapter, you're going to see him like try to do something different.
Right.
Because now it's important that like if you can see all these futures and like none of them go nicely, we have to try to do something else.
Yeah. Dang.
Because something's not working. We got to figure something out.
Right.
All right. So back in the chapter, we're gonna start now. Jessica wakes in the cave darkness. The smell of the Fremen around her is loud. The only way I can describe it is loud.
Thank you.
You just all of those bodies outside of the still suits just BO to the max. Because you know they don't shower because there's no water.
Right.
There is no way to clean yourself.
There's just
the stench.
Spice and sweat.
Cinnamon and stench. And her inner time sense lets her know it's almost night, but the cave was still dark. The Jessica realizes this is the first time in a long time she's let herself give into her great fatigue. And she slept relaxed. When was the last time she really slept?
Caladan.
Right. She's been going this whole time on edge, nervous. And This is the first time she could just kind of give into that great exhaustion.
Right. And I liked when in the book it said she realized that she had permitted herself the utterly relaxing sleep of great fatigue, and this suggested something of her own unconscious assessment on personal security within Stilgar's troops. So she slept real good and then woke up realizing that the only reason she slept real good was because she unconsciously trusted Stilgar and his people enough in that moment to actually allow herself to sleep unguarded and just let go.
She finally, which is huge. So this kind of almost this moment marks if you were to split the book in two, it's not feeling safe, and then all of a sudden Jessica feels okay, we feel like we're going someplace and we feel okay and we feel safe.
Right. Which is not.
It's not
really
quite half. No.
It's a little.
Evan is thumbing through his book.
It's a solid 2/3 into the book.
Yeah. Well, yes. It's a turning point, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Jessica in her hammock that had been fashioned out of her robe. So that's how they sleep. They take the robe off and they string it up like a hammock.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. At least they're comfy. Not sleeping on the ground like savages.
And functional attire. That's
yes.
Smart. Everything
in Arrakis has a function.
Right.
Or you don't use it. So yeah.
I'm for it.
I'm here for it. She got out of her hammock and slipped her feet to the rock floor and into her boots. As she does this, she thinks, I must remember to fasten the boots slip fashion so that my still suit's pumping action works better. There's so many things to remember. She could still taste the meal she had the night before. The same meal Paul had, but she didn't have the crazy moment with the spice.
Right. Why is that? Well, obviously, Paul's got some weird spiritual something going on with his whole situation, but spice is kind of a drug and it affects people. So why didn't it affect Jessica at all?
Yeah.
No,
that's a great question. It kind of shows how unique Paul is for this situation.
Okay.
We're going to see what happens when Jessica gets too much spice.
Oh.
So, yes, there's something that happens to her. But, so yeah, Paul has this unique thing about him where he, I guess, how do you say that? His Kizrock Hatterackness sends him to this moment. He was uniquely built for this time. But so, yeah, when everyone else has a spice, they don't trip as hard, or there is a moment where they all trip, and we're going to get to that later.
Ooh.
But, so yeah, the Emperor can take spice and not have that effect.
Okay.
He can just use it for the geriatricness.
Right.
The mental focus, like you would take Adderall maybe, but it's not as crazy trip as Paul go through.
Gotcha.
All right. She unhooks the robe from the hammock pegs in the rock, fumbles around in the dark with the fabric until she finds the top of it and puts it on. The first thing she thinks is how to get a message out to the Bene Gesserit. Which is funny that you would think of that right away, because now that, if the Bene Gesserit exist only to serve, who is she serving? Her loyalty has gone straight back to the Bene Gesserit. She wants to keep Paul safe, yes, but her first allegiance now is to the Bene Gesserit.
Right. It's hardwired into her.
Right.
Yeah.
And Paul is uniquely positioned at this point to be influenced by the Bene Gesserit. So that, like the Bene Gesserit have the Emperor in a cage, their hope is to also create that same cage for Paul.
Yeah, that sucks.
Sucks for Paul. So we're going to see if the Bene Gesserit actually can set him up in that cage. Jessica looks over and sees the glow globes come alight farther in the cave. She moves towards it. She sees people already dressed, Paul among them. Jessica remembered the night before and thought how strange Paul had been. He'd been withdrawn. He was like one come back from the dead, his eyes half shut and glassy with an inward stare. It made her think of what Paul had said in the still tent, how he warned her about the diet infused with spice, and how addictive it was.
Addictive.
Yeah. I wonders if there's any side effects of such a diet. Paul had said it had something to do with his prescient faculty, but he'd been strangely silent about what he sees. Like she knows it affects him in some weird way, but doesn't know quite how, and he's not really saying much. Stilgar emerges from the shadow and heads towards the group. Abrupt fear shoots through Jessica as her senses visible tensions of the people in the group surrounding Paul, their stiff movement and ritual positions. They have my countenance, Stilgar rumbled to the group, directly speaking to Jameis. Jameis is up to something and is riling the people up.
Yeah. Jameis sucks.
We're going to see. We're going to see if I can change your opinion here about Jameis by the end of this.
Okay. I'm pretty solidly on the team of Jameis sucks, but let's see what you can do.
Okay. You know the rules, Stilgar, Jameis said. Who knows it better? Stilgar asked. He's trying to de-escalate tension here in the group. Jameis growls back at Stilgar. I choose the combat. Jessica now runs across the cave towards Jameis and Stilgar, taking Stilgar's arm. What is this?
What, combat? Somebody say combat? No combat. Why is it combat?
Yeah, Jessica's ready to take anybody on. Stilgar replies, it's the Amtal rule, Stilgar said. Jameis is demanding the right to test your part in the legend.
Bum, bum, bum.
All right, so I want to talk about Amtal rule.
Okay.
Because this is the thing that you need to understand. Amtal rule was a tradition that was mainly practiced on many primitive planets. It literally translates as tested to destruction.
Ooh.
So you want to, when you're going out with something, you want to make sure you know what limits are of that thing. Because you don't want to be caught in a situation where something will break on you and it will cause you to die.
Right.
So you got to test everything. The translation of Amtal rule, the purpose of this was to discover what the limits of a person, regardless of the consequences, were.
Okay.
In other words, when an object is pushed to the limits, its true nature will be seen. This was practiced among Fremen as well as other societies that lived in the harshest environments.
Gotcha.
But during these days, where the Fremen are on Arrakis, this Amtal rule became a philosophical concept. With the basic premise that in order to know a thing well, you must know its limits. Only when an object was pushed beyond its limits would its true nature be seen. So Amtal was the only logical test of objects for people dependent on the survival. So this would mean that they want to test all the still suits to its max to see how it holds the body's water so they can have the best thing.
Gotcha.
Right. So it's almost like a theory of evolution. Only the strongest survive and you can move on from that. You want to know which thumpers work the best and call the biggest worms. You want to know what still tents can hold up in the storm. Yeah. You want to test everything to the max.
Okay.
But the Fremen would actually apply this to humans.
Gotcha.
Only the strongest humans would survive. Because the tribe itself's safety depended on every member. So the weakest member could destroy a whole tribe if they got caught. or they got stuck. So Amtal became a religious ritual to them. Life on Arrakis was the ultimate test by which all things were known, by how they were destroyed. However, such societies rarely viewed Amtal as merely a practical way to reduce the dangers. For the Fremen, Amtal became religious. They even use Amtal as a metaphor, like for life on Arrakis in general. Only Shah Halud, the sandworm on Arrakis, appeared to be exempt from Amtal rule. It could not be destroyed. The planet could not destroy the worms, and the worms destroyed everything.
Yeah. Dang.
So this means in the religious terms for the Fremen that Shah Halud was a deity and the ultimate tester of all things.
Oh.
So it became like a metaphorical religious sense.
Yeah. So like that's how they got to that deification.
Yeah. I knew that they got to that for making Shah Halud the deity, the sandworm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they want to make sure everything is tested to its limits. So what Jameis is doing is testing Paul and Jessica to the limit.
Right.
If they die, they were bad for the tribe.
Fair.
If they were good, they're the strongest in what's meant for the tribe, and I am what's bad. So by claiming Amtal rule, he is putting one with the tribe. Nothing else can be tested now.
That's a lot.
All right, so he's doing his thing. Jameis wants to prove, well, he's got some other intentions of why he wants to do this, but he's got his thing. Jameis says, she must be championed. If her champion wins, that's the truth. What it said, Jameis glances around at the Fremen around him, that she'd need no champion from the Fremen, which means, the thought struck Jessica, he's talking about single combat with Paul. Jessica released Stilgar's arm, taking a half step forward. I am always my own champion. Jameis snapped. You will not tell us our ways. Not without more proof than I've seen. Stilgar could have told you what to say last morning, and you could have bird-talked it back to us, hoping to make a false way among us. It's pretty true. That could have happened. Could have happened. They were a long time in front of that window trying to close it. So right. Jessica thinks I could take him. But that might be in conflict with how they interpret the missionary protectiva part in the legend. Stilgar turned to Jessica and spoke in a low voice. Jameis is one to hold a grudge, and your son bested him. It was an accident! There was witch force in the basin, and I'll prove it now. Stilgar then tries to bait Jameis into fighting him.
Right.
Saying how he's bested Jameis before, and he'd never make a good leader. Stilgar says he keeps Jameis around because he's useful in a fight, but his anger is dangerous to society. Jameis rumbles. Stilgar! Stilgar faced Jameis, but he's a boy, talking about Paul. You named him a man, Jameis said. His mother says he's been tested through with the Gom Jabbar. He's full-fleshed, full of water. They're carrying liter-johns of water. Liter-johns. And here we are, sipping our catch pockets the instant they show Dew Sparkle.
Dew Sparkle. Imagine someone angry saying, Dew Sparkle.
This podcast of Reading Dune is sponsored by the word Dew Sparkle. Make sure you go to your local store and pick up some Dew Sparkle today.
Oh my gosh. Mountain Dew Sparkle.
So, I mean, he's legitimately pissed. This is like a wealth thing now.
Yeah.
Who these outsiders with all this water? They just want to come in when we've been suffering and out there.
It's like everything he's saying, like, okay, like he has a point, but it's like, why? Like, stop. Like, you're being extra right now. And you just said Dew Sparkle. You know, there's a lot coming from Jameis right now that it's kind of like an eye roll situation. Or at least, like, as I'm reading, I'm like, dude, come on. You know?
He's pissed.
I'm seeing it like he's mostly upset that he got beat up by a little kid, you know?
Yes.
Like, that's really what happened.
It's really what's happening right now. But Stilgar looks over at Jessica. Is this true? Is there water in your pack? Yes, Jessica says. Liter Johns of it? 2 liter Johns. And Stilgar's shocked. Wait, what?
Right.
What was intended with this wealth? Like, you crossed the whole desert with that amount of water with you?
I love that he like asks, you know, like, is there water in your pack? She's like, yes, we're in the desert, homie.
You don't carry water with you?
Liter Johns of it? 2 of them. We're thirsty. We in the desert. What are you talking? She's like not even fazed by it.
But then she realizes, like, she's starting to understand through this about how different life is, right on Arrakis. Stilgar says, what was intended with this wealth? Wealth, she thought. She shook her head, feeling the coldness in his voice. Where I was born, water fell from the sky and ran over the land in wide rivers. A sighing gasp arose from the people.
Water from the sky.
I've not been trained in your water discipline, Jessica said. I've never before had to think of it this way. Stilgar replied, do you know that there are those among us who've lost from their catch pockets? They'll be in sore trouble before we reach Tabar this night. How could I know? Jessica said. If they're in need, give them water from our pack. Is that what you intended with this wealth? Jessica says, I intended to save life. Jameis butts in. You'll not buy us off with the water?
Jameis. Free water, bro. Stop.
You won't, Stilgar, you will not try to anger me against yourself. I see what you're trying to do and making me call you out. Stilgar turned to face Jameis. Are you determined to press the fight against the child, Jameis? I invoke Amtal rule. It's my right, Jameis said. Stilgar nodded. Then, if the boy doesn't carve you down, you'll answer to my knife afterwards. And this time, I'll not hold back the blade as I've done before.
Woo! Get him!
Jessica tries to interrupt, but Stilgar has none of it.
Right.
In the green lights of the glow globes, Jessica looks over and sees Jameis, brooding, waiting.
Broody Jameis.
And that's where she knows, why didn't I see him before? He's the silent kind who gets himself all worked up inside. Should have been prepared.
I mean, same, but...
Same, right. Sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. Just brood for a long time and it's going to be bursting out.
I could be a little broody myself.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we all have a little Jameis in us somewhere.
No!
Telling you, I'm going to change your opinion on it. Maybe. I don't know if I got to change my own opinion about it. All right. Jessica calls out to him. If you harm my son, you'll have to meet me. I'll call you out now. I'll carve you into a joint of... Paul interrupts. Mother, he steps forward. Perhaps if I explain to Jameis. Explain? Jameis sneered. Like Paul's going to mansplain to him about his own rules. Right? Like, no. Paul fell silent. He felt no fear. But Paul still felt the nexus boiling over this cave. Still remembering the prescient visions of himself dead under a knife. There had been so few avenues for escape in the vision. Stilgar says to Jessica, Sayadina, you must step back. Stop calling her that. That's yet to be proved. So what? She knows the prayer. Every child among us knows it. And with that, Jessica has the key to Jameis.
Yeah.
She could use the voice at any time to stop him. But she can't stop all the Fremen.
Right.
So she doesn't do anything.
And they would probably know if she had just like used the voice, because Jameis would have just like sat down and out of nowhere.
They would have just witch magic, and then they really would have like gone after her.
Yeah.
But Jessica does try to do this. She pitches her voice in a twisting tone and says, you will answer to me then. I'll teach you agony. Jameis stops, yells, she's trying to put a spell on me. I invoke the silence on her. So be it, Stilgar says. Then he casts a warning glance at Jessica. If you speak again, Sayadina, we will know it is your witchcraft, and you will be forfeit.
Yikes.
Jessica felt hands pulling her back. And she saw Paul being separated from the group as Chani is whispering in his ear. The Fremen arranged themselves into a ring, and the glow globes turned from green to yellow. It's fight night, boys. Jameis steps into the ring, slips out of his robe, tossed it to the crowd, takes one last drink from his catch pocket, and peels off his suit, detaching it, handing it to the crowd. He's standing there in a loincloth and socks with his crysknife, waiting.
It's so funny. It's like a loincloth and socks.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why.
It's just like whatever they have to wear under the, like in their boots under the.
In the boots, he's got a little socks there,
little sockies,
so they don't get the something that's happened there.
Frank Herbert didn't use the word socks, but that's what's going on here. Little socks.
It sounds much more science fiction-y in the book, and I was like, no, it's basically just socks. Isaiah from the live stream says he loves Jameis in the duel in the cave, and it's just the beginning of something extraordinary.
Ooh, thanks, Isaiah.
All right, yeah.
For the heads up.
Chani helps Paul get out of his still suit. It's probably not as smelly as Jameis, but just saying. And presses her crysknife into his hand. Jessica looks at Paul, thinking of his training. His extraordinary training.
Yep.
He'd been taught fighting in the deadliest schools by teachers like Gurney Halleck, Duncan Idaho, men who were legends in their own right. Plus, she taught him everything she knew as well.
Right.
Paul looked confident. But then the thought hits her. But he's only 15. He has no shield. I must stop this.
Just the mom monster in her brain. But he's a boy,
Just clicks in. Stilgar's watching her, says, "You cannot stop it. And you must not speak." Jessica puts a hand over her mouth, and Paul steps into the arena in his fighting shorts and barefoot. So he's got his little briefs on, and he's barefoot.
Yeah, picture like Nike shorts.
Right, yeah, something really cool, not just like a loincloth. Shows royalty in what underwear you wear on Arrakis. Duncan always said, when in doubt of your surface, bare feet is best. So you can feel what's going on. You're more in touch with the earth. I don't know. Chaney's words rolling through his head. She said, Jameis turns to the right with his knife after a parry. It's a habit we've all seen. He also can fight with either hand, so watch for the knife switch. Paul's body felt no fear. This felt like training from hours and hours and hours in the training room. Paul looked down at his knife, wondering, I wonder at what point this knife breaks. Can it break? Jameis began sliding to the right, along the edge of the ring opposite Paul. Paul crouched down, and they realized he had no shield. And all of his training was fighting with the shield.
Right.
I think that's like an oh crap moment. Like, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a kid that's done karate his whole life suddenly is in a bar fight.
Right.
And it's like, well, technically you're very well trained, but this is not your dojo. Like this is a bar fight.
There is glass being thrown everywhere.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Jameis calls out in ritual challenge. May thy knife chip and shatter. That's where Paul's like, I guess the knife chips then.
Yeah. I guess it will break. Okay. Answered my question. Thanks, Jameis.
Paul stared across the ring at Jameis, the man's body looking like a knotted ripcord on a dried skeleton.
Ugh.
So people on Arrakis are lean, tough, and very smelly.
Yes.
I think the smelly part, it's just nice to know in the movie we won't have smell, but like it would be really nice though when the Fremen show up, somebody just drops like a fart bomb and you can smell the whole thing the whole time as soon as I enter the CH.
Some moldy onions.
If you do that
on the screen.
If you do that in the theater, please tweet us at Reading Dune what your experience was. That'd be great. At that point, fear started coursing through Paul. He felt naked and afraid. The prescience had fed his knowledge with countless experiences leading up to this moment. And now, here we are, his death hanging in the balance. As he circled the ring opposite Jameis, he repeated the Bene Gesserit litany against fear in his head. Fear is the mind killer. It was like a cold bath washing over him. He felt everything relax. Jameis yelled to Paul, "I'll sheath my knife in your blood," and pounced at Paul. Paul dodged the blow with ease, with his reflexes attuned to fighting with his shield. Jameis's back was wide open. Paul tries to attack, but he's too slow.
Right, because he was trained to be slow. Because
with fighting with the shield, you need a slow blade to pierce the shield.
Right. You can't just...
Right. As Evan tries to stab me.
Well, yeah.
Really quickly.
I mean, you heard the noise.
You heard the noise?
You were holding the knife and you went... That's...
I knew exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. All right. This keeps happening. He dodges the blow, but can't attack fast enough. And each time, Paul's counter blow is late. Stilgar turns to Jessica. "Is your son playing with that poor fool?" But then realizes she can't talk, waved to her and saying, "Sorry, you must remain silent."
Yeah.
Stilgar just needs someone to talk to. Because, the whole crowd is seeing this, and it's Jameis' attack, and he just misses him and misses him. He's just like diving around the arena, and Paul's just like walking.
Right.
And like a Bruce Lee moment where he's just not getting, but he also can't quite get him.
Right.
The two figures continue to circle the ring. Jameis attacking, Paul dodging, being too slow on the return. Jameis attacks, but instead of dodging, Paul meets the man's knife hand on a point with his own blade. First blood.
Stabs him, shakes him.
Ha!
Shaking the hand.
A few drops of blood drip from Jameis's hand and then stops. I thought that was interesting. He doesn't keep bleeding.
Why? Is that a thing?
It's got to be like
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. It's just a few drops and the bleeding stops. And I think it's a Fremen thing. Living on Arrakis, your body knows it needs to like keep its water in, so it just coagulates super fast.
That's cool.
Paul crouched and calls out, "Do you yield?" "Ha!" Jameis cries. The crowd gets upset and starts to murmur. Stilgar interjects, "The lad doesn't know the rule." Then speaking to Paul, "There can be no yielding. Death is the test of the challenge."
Yikes.
Paul swallows hard. He's never killed a man before. Ugh. Paul circled right and forced Jameis's movement. His prescient visions began to plague him as the time boiling over with variables filled his brain. "Have an end to it, lad. Don't play with him," Stilgar yells to Paul. Because, again, the Fremen just think that he's playing with Jameis.
Right. But it's like, he's sitting there, 15 years old, and he's like, "Oh, I have to kill this guy.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on murdering anybody today."
I didn't wake up today trying to murder somebody.
Right. Like, I'm not 15, and the thought of like, if I just stab somebody to death, maybe I'm soft, but I would be like messed up for the rest of my life.
Well, yeah, especially like you get into a fight with somebody and you're like, "Oh, I just expect this to end it." No, it has to end in death. You're like,
right.
Damn it.
I'm not trying to kill nobody.
I don't want to go the whole way.
I don't want no PTSD. No, thank you.
No way. I don't want that. Jameis backs up and desperation hits the man's face. Paul pressed the fight now, remembering what Duncan had told him. When your opponent fears you, then's the moment when you give the fear its own reign. Give it time to work on him. He'll make a mistake. He'll attack in desperation.
Mm-hmm. You're
being trained to detect these mistakes and use them. The crowd starts getting excited. Jessica thinks the crowd thinks Paul is playing with Jameis and being needlessly cruel. But the crowd is thoroughly enjoying this.
Right.
And she can feel the pressure start building. Like this is the Lisan El Gaib being tested.
Yeah.
Is he the man? Is he not? If he dies, we know, but oh my gosh, this is the fight. They'll be talking about this fight for generations to come when he is tested.
Right.
They're getting pumped. Woo! Jameis leaps up high to attack. He switches the knife hand midair. Paul watches the knife switch because you don't watch the hands.
Watch the knife.
You watch the knife. As Jameis is coming down, Paul shifted his own knife, slipped sideways, and thrust upwards into Jameis's oncoming chest. Thud! Jameis fell like a limp rag. His eyes stared out like dark blue glass.
Jameis is dead.
He's dead. The troop rushed forward, pushing Paul aside. They hit Jameis and rushed him away. Another group of Fremen start helping Paul put his steel suit back on, putting on his robe.
Right.
But now this is like ceremoniously. Like he's just killed Jameis, who's arguably a pretty good fighter.
Right.
No, Fremen. He made him look like a child in this, and they're going to rush Jameis away so they can go collect his water,
right,
do what they need to do. But now they're like, Paul is standing there, and the Fremen just come around him. He's not doing anything. They're just letting the Fremen know he's letting them put on the things,
right,
like a king.
Yeah, you know what this like reminded me of, because like Jessica has a reaction to it.
Yeah.
But like while they're putting on his still suit, there's a scene in the movie Fight Club where Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden is like gets in a fight or whatever, and like he's all like messed up, and then he just like sits down, and he like crosses his leg, and he puts a cigarette in his mouth, and somebody comes up and lights it.
Yes,
you know, and it's like he didn't even have a thought of it going any other way. He like as soon as he put the cigarette in his mouth, the lighter was already there, and he lit. It was like that demonstration.
Oh,
like that's kind of what Paul is feeling right now. And Jessica's like, hold up, this is a moment. Like this is an important moment.
Yes.
And he's either gonna like really like this feeling of killing a guy out of nowhere, or he's gonna like have compassion. And it's like she sees the tension between those two possibilities.
I was really wondering if we were going to get a Fight Club reference tonight, and I'm glad that you did it. I was wondering, is this going to happen? But no, that's a good way of putting it.
I didn't even intend to. It wasn't even a pun not intended. But pun reference pun not intended.
But it's definitely the Fight Club scene.
Yeah.
All right. Paul presses forward towards her son. Now is a terrible moment. He's killed a man in clear superiority.
Right.
He must not grow to enjoy such a victory. Chani stood at one side, her eyes solely focused on Paul in pure amazement.
She's into it.
She's so into it.
She's into it.
Man, whew, I'm into it a little bit.
He killed Jameis.
Jessica thinks it must be done now and swiftly. Well, now, how does it feel to be a killer? Paul stiffened as though he's been struck. He met his mother's cold eyes, and his face darkened with a rush of blood. He looked down to where Jameis's body had been. He's thinking about it.
Right. And Jessica used her weirding ways.
Her mom ways.
To just like, bloop, throw a little bit of guilt in there, and he won't get all crazy and like homicidal.
And then Stilgar pressed through towards to Paul. When the time comes for you to call me out, do not think you'll play with me the way you played with Jameis. So you have a little father-son thing there, like, yeah. Jessica sensed the way in her words combined with Stilgar's, and they sunk into Paul doing the work on the boy. Paul looked at his mother. You know what it was? She heard the remorse in his voice. Jessica turned to face the group. Paul has never killed a man with a naked blade. Everyone in the cave is stunned. Wait, what? Paul says, I wasn't playing with him. I did not want to kill him. Stilgar, slowly processing all of these things, tugs on his beard. Was that why you asked him to yield? Ah, I see. Our ways are different. You'll see them. You'll see the sense of them in time. I thought for a moment we had admitted a scorpion into our midst. He hesitated. I shall not call you lad the more. Right? He's like, oh, wow.
He's a man.
He's a man. He's now for sure a man.
This Fight Club was his bar mitzvah.
Yes. Needs a name still? A voice in the crowd called out. Stilgar nodded, still tugging at his beard. I see strength in you, like the strength beneath the pillar. You shall be known as Usul, the base of the pillar. This will be your secret name, the only that we will only use in the siege. A murmur went through the troop. Good name, strong, bring us luck.
That's not a murmur.
I mean, I'm doing it. There's lots of Okay, I don't know if you're gonna remember this quote. There's a quote 2 chapters ago where it talks about the pillars of the universe and to be the Fremen religion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like the pillars of the universe.
Yes.
Did you kind of remember what that was talking about?
No. I remember it existing.
Yeah. So in the Fremen religion, they're going to have like the pillars of the universe that people will go evangelize and crusade out and tell people, these are the pillars of how the universe works, and Muad'dib will be their prophet, right?
Right.
It's funny how his name in the CH is base of a pillar.
Yeah.
The pillars of the universe are going to be built off him.
Dang.
I just thought that was interesting. Stilgar asked Paul, now, what name of manhood do you choose for us to call you openly? Paul glanced at his mother. Back at Stilgar.
I really like this part. Keep going.
Because he's like, watch this, Mom. Bits and pieces of this moment registered in his prescient memory. But he felt the differences, as though they were physical, pushing him through a narrow door of the present. Call among you the little mouse that jumps. A chuckle sounded to the troop.
Okay, he said, I'm gonna read it again. How do you call among you the little mouse, the mouse that jumps? Paul asked, remembering the pop of motion at Tuono Basin that he illustrated with one hand. So he's like, little mouse that like hops.
Oh, the great Muad'dib.
So awkward. Yeah. I would laugh too. Some kid was like, what do you call you guys are gonna my man name should be the little mouse that goes blip boop.
A chuckle sounded through the troop. We call that one Muad'dib. Stilgar says. Jessica gasps. It was the name Paul had told her.
Right.
She felt sudden fear of her son and for her son. Paul swallowed. He remembered the prescient visions of legions following the green and black banner of the Atreides, pillaging and burning across the universe in the name of their prophet, Muad'dib. That must not happen, he thinks. Is that the name you wish, Muad'dib? Stilgar asked, because Paul is being awkwardly silent through most of this, probably because he's like, what do I do? That's not going to happen. I got to do something different. I am an Atreides, Paul whispered. Then talking louder, he said, it is not right I give up my father's name entirely. Could I be known among you as Paul Muad'dib? You are Paul Muad'dib, Stilgar announced. Paul thought, that was different. I never saw that in any vision.
Uh-oh. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't really tell.
I think that's a good thing. He's going to try to, for the people in the Dune universe that are like extremely prescient, they're constantly looking to try something different.
Right. Because it makes sense too, because all of the futures that he is seeing are like bad news, like bad stuff is going to happen. So he's like, okay, whatever I can do that doesn't lead there, I'm going to do. That makes sense.
Yes. And it brings me back to the Heisenberg effect in the last chapter. If you look at an event for too long, it won't happen. So you have to like try to do things you don't see to try to align the pieces the way you want. So you gotta like kind of do something different. That's the key part.
Gotcha.
Again, a murmur from the crowd. Wisdom and strength. It is the legend. Wazan al-Gaib. Wazan al-Gaib. Stilgar talked to Paul. I wish to tell you about your new name. The choice pleases us. Muad'dib is wise in the ways of the desert. Muad'dib creates his own water. Muad'dib hides from the sun and travels at night. We call Muad'dib instructor of boys. That is a powerful base on which to build your life, Paul. Muad'dib, who is Usul among us. we welcome you. Stilgar touched Paul's forehead with one palm, boop, withdrew his hand, and embraced Paul, murmuring, Uso. He released him, and another Fremen comes up, embraces Paul, and says, Uso. And then he let go. And another Fremen.
They're just passing him
around. Uso. Chani eventually comes up.
She gives him a sexy hug.
Oh, real close.
They touch cheeks.
They touch cheeks. It's intimate.
That's an intimate hug, yeah.
And then she whispers, probably just directly in his ear, like, Uso.
I got chills. They're multiplying.
Paul stood before Stilgar after everyone has hugged him. Stilgar's face was hardened. And now, Paul Muad'dib, tighten up that still suit.
back to soldier.
Back to Mo. Chani, Paul Muad'Dib's nose plugs are poor as fit as I've ever seen. And she's like, I'll give him mine. Like, I'll share it. And he's like, no, there are spares. Oh, are we a troop together or are we savages? That voice cries out, but still, what about the water? Stilgar responded, I know your need. Broach one of those what need it. The water is the dower property of the Sayadina and will be repaid at the siege at field rates, less pack fees. And she, of course, she wants to know how much that is. And she's like, wait, what's going on? It's like 1/10. And she's like, our ways are good. You'll figure it out.
Right.
Like, there's a reason.
This is basically like the field cost is like if you have to take water from somebody else while you're out in the desert, it's worth 10 times as much as it is in the siege.
Right.
That makes sense to me. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Economics.
Right.
Water economics. The rustling of robes marked the movement as men turned to get water. Stilgar held up his hand, and there was silence. A full ceremony. Turning away with respect due to one who proved our fortune with his Tahadi challenge. I invoke the right at sunset when the dark shall cover him. Paul, hearing these words once again, was plunged into the abyss.
Wow.
The Atreides banner flying with the jihad behind him, with a wake of all of these fanatics raging through the universe, just pouring out destruction on every planet known in the Imperium. He sees this and he thinks to himself, where, hold on, I'm getting right in the book where it says, it will not be, he told himself. I cannot let it be. And thus ends chapter 33.
There it is. He cannot let it be.
And Paul is now officially Paul Muad'Dib.
Paul Muad'Dib. Which we didn't see coming until this moment, because even like Princess Irulan has been calling him Muad'Dib over and over again.
Yep. But now
that was cool. That was a cool little.
And I like how he does it too. He's not like, I will be Muad'Dib. He's like, watch this.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. And it's cool that he's like, I'm not going to be one thing. I am two things. You know, like. So I will be Paul and Muad'Dib. Like, that's who I am now.
And in the book, they have it hyphenated.
Right.
Which reminds me of Liet Kynes. You know,
yeah.
Right? He's got one leg in the Imperium and one leg in the Fremen.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul now has one leg. He's still a Duke.
Right.
But he's also now part of these Fremen. And we're going to see how they accept him moving forward very shortly, as we're not even to this yet. We're getting really close.
Right.
One day you'll see a Fremen city.
Hopefully next week.
We'll see.
Maybe.
We are so glad that you joined us here live.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Yeah, I can't do it from mine. You can do it from yours. Shout out from Portugal. Live. They call themselves LOL. And we see you.
LOL. Lol.
We see you.
From Portugal.
And Bryce Thomas, good to have you on the show. He says, finally caught up with both in the book and the podcast. Glad to catch you live.
Let's
We're
go.
glad to see you. Thank you very much, Price. If you want to hit us up, make sure you hit us up on Twitter at Reading Dune. We tweet different stuff back and forth.
Yeah.
The last thing was like, you might like this. Which faction, if you were in the Duneverse, which faction would you align with? Would you be a Mentat, Bene Gesserit, the Guild, the Fremen, Harkonnens, maybe the Atreides?
It's a toss. It's a tie, I think, between the Atreides and the Fremen. Basically, it's like what Paul is trying to be. I mean, because the Atreides sincerity thing and like the way that they are in the system but don't fully believe in it and want to that chaotic good type thing. I really dig that. But also the desert power, the like mindfulness, the culture of the Fremen. I like it a lot. So
when I look at your body, Evan, you do have that ripcord muscles on that skeleton.
Yes. Rah, rah, rah. I am skinny man. That is not true.
And lastly, shout out to Julian. He says, happy to be here from Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. We got some Boricuas in the house.
So we just want to say stay spicy, y'all. And we will see you in the next chapter.